Hey friends, welcome to our Power is Within podcast. I'm your host, Chasmith, and my mission for this podcast is to inspire you to take your power back and to realize that you are the healer that you've been looking for all along. And I do wonder what could happen if we all learn to truly just love ourselves a little bit more. If you're enjoying the content from this podcast and the guests that I have had on the show, there are a few ways that you can help support future episodes. First, click the subscribe button so that you have every new episode waiting for you in your podcast library and you don't miss out on a good one. Secondly, you could leave a 5-star rating or a quick review on Apple Podcast. You could share your favorite episode with a friend on social media and tag me at Our Power Is Within. And lastly, at the bottom of the show notes, you will find a link directly to a tip jar where you can support this podcast if you feel called to. Thank you so much. So let's see. Last week's challenge was all about reflection, and this week's challenge is it's also going to be about reflection, but a little bit different. So last week we were focused on asking ourselves, where might I still be giving my power away? And this week, what I'm going to ask is that we take a pause. Hopefully, it's first thing in the morning when you're still in that stillness before you kind of get the day started so that you could tend to what you come up with. But we're going to ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I need in this moment? What do I need today? That's why I think it's nice to do in the morning, right? Because if you do it right before you go to bed, you kind of are going to sleep and maybe you kind of missed out on an opportunity to provide one of those things you needed. So, yeah, I hope you'll join me on this challenge. This might only take a few minutes out of your day, but it could yield some profound discoveries and a chance for a deeper connection with self. So, let me know how it goes if you feel called to share as usual. This week's guest, we have Jen Evans. Oh, Jen's a lovely woman. I really enjoy talking to Jen. She shares with us today a little bit about her recovery story. Jen discovered the Gupta Program, which actually became the catalyst for her healing journey to really take root. And so she still considers the Gupta Program the foundation of her healing tools today. Although she actually has this really amazing analogy. She tells us about developing this healing tool belt. And um, this tool belt can be filled with all these different modalities and tools to approach healing. And then this belt is kind of this belt of resilience. And then we have these different tools to draw upon when we need them. So Jen, she is a Gupta coach as well as an EFT practitioner, a health coach, and she has also much experience with many other modalities at this point in her life. And she will share some of that today. One thing I don't think that she mentions in our chat, but I did see on her website that I actually absolutely love, thank you, Jen, is that she donates to this ecology program to help plant trees and support regeneration. And she does that. Um, I believe the way it sounds is that she does this when she's working with somebody. I think that she takes a part of with each person she works with, she takes a part to do this donation, which is really awesome. I love it. Um, let's see. I love chatting with Jen. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as well. And I do want to mention that if you are not familiar with the Gupta program, I do highly encourage you to go back to episode 47, where I actually do interview Ashok Gupta himself. This episode, we do take a deep dive into the program and so much more. It's a really fun one, Ashok. If you have not listened to this episode or had any encounters with hearing him speak, he's also quite a joy. So, it might behoove you to go back and check out that episode either before or after this episode today with Jen. Jen, thank you so much for being here today with me and everyone listening on this podcast.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I'm such a fan of the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually, I know I have, I want to actually give a shout. I want to give a shout out to my friend Anna, who is somebody that I met through the DNRS community, actually, and she's a huge fan of your work, and she is the lovely woman who connected us and asked to have you on the show, and I know she's looking forward to this.
Thank you so much, Anna, for connecting us. It's wonderful, and what a gift that we can do this with the world we live in, with the internet and things that we share now. So it has its evils, but it has good sides too.
Absolutely. It's all perspective. Uh, so I was thinking that for everyone listening, a great starting point is usually just having you, talk about your healing story, share a little bit about yourself and what you've been through. And I really feel that always helps people really connect and relate. And also inspire hope, when we hear about somebody else overcoming something that seemed impossible. So, could you start with that?
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I was always somebody, even from a very young age, as far as I can remember, someone who had recurrent illnesses, quite sick, but nothing that was considered life threatening, or anyone really made a big deal of. And I had a lot of messages growing up, and then off into adulthood, that we've just got kind of weak genes in our family, or we're kind of sensitive, or it was always kind of swept under the carpet and kind of just squared away. And so when I went into adulthood and went out into the world, I just thought that's just the way it is. That I'm just going to have to deal with my body every so often, kind of breaking down, getting infections, like increasing IBS symptoms, kind of bits of fatigue and maybe depression, but hadn't really recognized them as that. Just thought, that's just what happens to people when they're busy and going about things. And so I was pretty ignorant of what was really actually going on in my body, really divorced from what was going on. And then I think it was when I was 30. That's when I call, like, the collapse, the kind of like big break in my health happened. It had been building for a long time, but I had an infection in my tooth. I had it out. Had It was called dry socket as a result of it, and then an infection, and had some antibiotics. And basically, from sort of lying down on the sofa to recover from that little operation and that sort of infection, I just never got back up from there. The fatigue just was so heavy. My bones felt like they were aching, like all of my muscles just lost all of their energy. And there seemed to be nothing I could do about it. So just did thought what I should do: go to the doctors, ask them what's going on. And they were all like, no, can't find anything major wrong with you. Just rest, you'll get over it in some point. And just, the weeks rolled by, months rolled by, and I just never got better. In fact, it actually just kept getting worse and worse, because the stress of dealing with, something that just completely took me out of the world and couldn't work, and just really just laid me completely low. And so I did the only thing I thought I could do at that time, which was just sort of try to find the root cause, try to trace where this was coming from. And because I had such severe stomach issues for such a long time. I mean, when I was a kid, I had allergies and reactions to things, and then in my 20s, I had this increasing IBS symptoms. And in the recent years, just before that collapse, it seemed to be the worst. I was down to just eating a few foods, reacted to a lot of different things, always bloated and kind of nauseous and acid reflux. So I thought, right, I'll just concentrate. It must be my stomach. It must be I'm not digesting. It must be I'm not getting my energy properly. And I wasn't really getting any medical help to help me out with that, or give me any advice or sort of insight. So I just went down that track, went on the computer, started Googling, started trying to find out about these things, and then just basically tried every diet, every supplement, started to try to get some help from nutritionists and some private doctors. And they put me on this diet, that diet. So it was like SIBO and Candida, and right, okay, so your mitochondria, right, you need to treat that. And it was tens of thousands of pounds, just everything I had just thrown at it. And maybe a little tiny bit of improvement here and there, and I try to hold on to the hope of that. But it really, no major shift happened, nothing at all. And it was just a chance thing that I was seeing a nutritionist, and I, basically was just so depressed and said, I don't know what to do here. I've been on this diet for ages. I'm starving myself. I actually developed an eating disorder just from becoming so obsessed with those healing diets. Because I thought, maybe it's me, maybe I'm not doing them perfectly. So I'll just try even harder and be more severe, to the point where I literally, there was one point where I wasn't even eating food. I went to the doctor and said, I can't even eat food without a reaction. I'm doing everything I possibly could have done. And they put me on this like powdered food supplement that you'd be on if you were sort of dying in hospital, like on a drip. I ate that for months and months, and I just became completely emaciated and no energy, my mood was just completely bottomed out. Which is when this passing comment by this nutritionist that I'd gone to see saying, look, I'm at the end of the road here. You've got to help me out. And she said, well, you've got chronic fatigue, so you need to really be addressing that. And I was like, what are you talking about? I hadn't heard these words before, which is untrue, because my aunt has ME, chronic fatigue, but it wasn't something that I thought was me and what this was. I thought this was a stomach thing and there was an infection, So that just put me on a whole new track, and I just Googled it loads and completely by chance came across the Gupta Program, which is, I know that you've interviewed before the director of the program, Ashok Gupta. So that was a program that just put me on a new track, and that's how that's where I trace my healing journey, like the start of it from, really. That was where I learned about the mind-body connection and started to understand that what was going on for me mentally and emotionally was what was manifesting in my body. So yeah, that's kind of how it started, and kind of like the depths that it went to before it changed. That was years and years to get to that point.
Wow.
And that was probably about 5, 6 years ago that I started the Gupta program. Yeah.
So that was like a really big catalyst for you to shift things around.
Massive catalyst. Yeah. The hypothesis of the program saying, your whole system's dysregulated, basically, really, like you get internal stresses, external stresses, all these things. Because I'd been just, assuming it was all external stresses to my body. It's the environment, it's the food, I wasn't even considering stress as a thing at this point that I was dealing with, because I was so used to being in this enormously heightened stress state, and I had no idea, because I was so used to it. I just thought, right, it must be this, these things that are coming towards me. So yeah, it really opened my eyes to that. And because there's a community of people doing it together, there's a forum and that sort of thing, suddenly just was connected to hundreds of people that were experiencing the same thing, which was just, it was shocking, but it was really comforting as well, because I understood that, I'd been out there on a limb by myself all this time. And suddenly here was help, here was hope, here was information. So yeah, it was the beginning of the whole next chapter of my life.
Yeah, and when you first started learning about this and the mind-body connection, did it resonate with you at first, or was there some resistance initially?
Both, I think. Yeah, intellectually, it made perfect sense. It put together the pieces of what little bits I'd learned along the way, and things that had been suggested, but I'd been definitely resisting, saying, no, that's not me. I'd rather go down the sort of trying to find the magic pill route. I really wanted to and I wanted it to be fast, and I wanted it to be, I wanted to just go back to my old life. So I was resistant in that way, but it did make sense in my head. But on an emotional level, yeah, it really made me freak out, and I was resistant, because I would have to look inwards. I would have to try to understand myself and become aware of what my behaviors were and what my ideas were. And the Gupta program really helped with that. That was the first step with that, because just building awareness and doing the techniques around what I was just thinking in that moment. But now looking back, the depths of that self-awareness that we have to go to well, I think that we have to go to really see that healing progress. I had no idea at that time. So I might have had some resistance to sort of scratching the surface, but I had no idea what was in store for me on that
Mm.
journey.
And so doing the Gupta program was kind of step one on the path.
It was step one on the path, and I still consider it as my foundation for everything that's come afterwards, and it's sort of foundation that I return to whenever I need that basis, because it comes the sort of central part of that program is the 3 R's, which are retraining the neural pathways, the way that you're thinking and behaving. There's parts of you that have really become out of balance. Restoring the nervous system, so really relaxing the nervous system back down. And the 3rd R is re-engaging with joy. So that is my foundation. And if I ever go off course, if I ever feel myself, going back down old rabbit holes, that's when I know I need to return to those 3 as my basis. Mm-hmm. And from that was my springboard. I followed that religiously for a few years, and it was only then when I found that there were deeper levels that I wasn't either able to address, or I didn't have the personal resources to go in on. I expanded out and found some other techniques just to add in. But I see it all as just, now I've developed a tool belt of all these different techniques, and I can just, in any moment decide, right, I need that one, I need a bit of that, or yeah, I need to return to a bit of that one. So yeah, I see the Gupta program, I think, as the belt. It's the main thing that I can always fall back on if I need to.
The belt of the tool belt. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a really good analogy. So I was reading one of your blogs. I was reading through a bunch of them, and one that really caught my eye, because it's a really common theme, was the blog you recently wrote on overwhelm. And I know for me that's been a theme, and I know through the connections I've made on this journey that that's a really common theme for a lot of people. And I noticed that a lot of times, even as we're doing like whatever the program is that we find and discover, and we're starting to feel better, but then we kind of try to step back into life, that overwhelm kind of knocks us back down, or hits us again. And I wanted to read one little thing for everyone listening that you wrote about it in that blog. You said you were speaking about doing the program, and that you had a shift. It started with the Gupta program, and you said, and going through it a second time, I realized I'm not getting this. I learned the techniques and I applied them, but I was applying them from the same mindset that I had used to live all along, more perfectly. And then when things improve, let's use that energy to get back out there, find my identity and the affection I craved in the outside world, a world of achieving and doing, helping and pleasing. Yeah. And I that stood out, and I wanted to read that because I really feel like, similar to how when you joined the program and you were now surrounded by all these people that had similar experiences, it made you realize you weren't alone. And so if there's anyone listening that feels alone with this overwhelm, or maybe they realize as they hear me read that they also approach their healing program the same, whether it's the Gupta program or DNRS or any other brain retraining program out there, have they been applying it in the same way they were living life prior? Because it's often those traits of perfection and pleasing and achieving that more than likely helped us become sick. And so to try to heal in the same way can pose a challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's probably one of the most common things, especially at the beginning, I see with my own clients now, working with people with these kind of conditions. So yeah, like you said, I think most of the people that develop these kind of things, they're smart, they're active, they're achieving, they really got so much to give. And I think there's so much to give. There's the fire somewhere inside that really keeps them going. You're experiencing these kind of conditions, these kind of long-term things that hold you back from just functioning, just in the most basic way. there must be something keeping you going, even if you're completely unconscious of it. And I think it's because like that true self, the true fire in someone is there, it's burning, and it's from there that this illness is coming from, because it's screaming, you're not aligned to me, you're not honoring me, you're not nourishing me. And that's not a judgment that we put on ourselves or anyone else. It's that, you know, we've gone into the ego protective self from any trauma that's been experienced, or overwhelm, you know, just puts us into that stress state, so we're in that tunnel vision.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely it's what how I suddenly saw myself, and I was really shocked that I'd gone back to, well, I was just in the original pattern that was the problem in the first place, and I was trying to heal from that really push place, that active place, that let's intellectualize it, let's analyze it, let's achieve, let's get through this, and I want to get back to this other way of being. And I think what I picked up when you read the quote back to me then was the words, I was craving affection. You know, I was wanting to get back out in the world to get, you know, attention, to get approval, to just be connected. And the connected part is healthy. You know, that's normal. That's what I really want. I was craving on that deep level, wanting to be connected to people. But what I hadn't realized was that I'd never truly been connected. That's why I was craving it so much, because I didn't really have that. Now in hindsight, I know in my childhood, I grew up then desperately craving it. And probably one of the most shocking parts of myself that I came across on the healing journey was a part of myself that's quite narcissistic. And that's not a judgment on myself or a diagnostic thing. It's just, you know, a part of myself that's just really self-obsessed, in that it was so hurt, so hurt as a young being and wounded, that it swung from, I feel like nothing, I am unlovable, I am so grieving and angry and fed up that I just don't have that sense of connection and love in my life, that I got to go to the extreme other end of the spectrum here to get that. Then that must be what I've got to do. So I've got to get affection, get attention, people please, achieve, be perfect. And that's what put me into that overdrive. That's what really created that part of me that just was constantly searching desperately out in the world for those things that I was missing in my inner world. And yeah, it just completely blinkered me to how things really are. It blinkered me to my true self, kept me completely divorced from that true self, and it kept me divorced from my body. So I wasn't listening to those symptoms as they were coming up over the years, getting worse over the years. Just always focused outside of myself. Do, be, think, achieve. And yeah, I tried to heal in that way. So I tend to always start with my clients there as well. Like, are you trying to achieve healing? Are you trying to outsmart it? Are you trying to figure it out? You know, are you still Googling every day? So yeah, it's a really important one to pick apart.
Yeah. So, what were some of the ways that you were able to break these old patterns of the overwhelm of everything we're kind of talking about, and shift into a way of being that was more serving for you and this journey?
Yeah, so I've been through different phases, and as I said, it's built into a tool belt. So I just started with the Gupta Program techniques, and then I moved a bit into EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping, which I now practice as well as a practitioner. That was the one that really helped me break down, to get from the point of, in a day, you know, something's going on, or I'm really stressed out, or I'm going off down a loophole here, or, you know, I can't stop thinking about this thing. And I'd stop, I'd do my tapping on it, and it really broke apart what was happening and allowed me to just move inwards and feel what was happening, rather than just thinking about it and trying to intellectualize and try to sort of argue my way out of thinking or feeling something. So that bringing myself back into the body with EFT, and then just sort of more techniques like that I've developed or experienced with different practitioners or colleagues over time. Anything that brings me in the moment of reaction, in the moment of feeling, back in to be with that feeling itself. Anything at all, any technique that does that is the way that I've broken through resisting them, and then started to rewire them or transform them or release them or whatever it is that part of me needs, because they might need very different things at different times. But the most important thing was allowing myself to feel the feelings. So
Mm.
yeah, because I was just absolutely completely blocked off from doing that. There was such a terror to feel myself. And growing up in a household where other people's emotions and moods were more bombastic and more dangerous, and took up all the space. I learned very early on there wasn't space for me to feel and think and do. So I never learned that skill. I never learned that resource. It wasn't patterned in any way. So I had to learn it. I had to reparent myself to be a whole holistic human where I, do feel my feelings, do feel pain, do feel hunger. I just denied all of those things that were happening inside.
Mm-hmm. When you first kind of realized what we were just talking about, how you
Mm.
realized you were approaching the Gupta program, even from that old place, that old
Mm.
pattern, what were there any like steps that you decided you were going to take immediately to, shift how you were approaching the program?
Yeah, I had to drop the version of the kind of routine that I'd created from it, from my own head, from I'd applied my pattern. So I had lists of when I should be doing techniques through the day and what I should be doing, and just like tick box things where I'd have to say, yeah, I've done that, and I've done a bit of yoga, and I've done a bit of this, and so it was from this really achiever perfectionist kind of thing, and I had to just literally rip that all off the walls. I had to take it all back, and I had to just go back to the very beginning of the program and re-listen to the basic first steps, which I was really resistant to doing, because there was that part inside of me that said, I've got it. I've intellectualized it. I know what I'm doing. I have gone to a whole new level with it. Look at me with, going to an advanced, sort of level. And I had to admit to myself that I did not know better. That was the most important thing, to say, it's my parts that are still holding me away from the truth. And they are making me do this in a really stressful way, in a really frenetic way, and a really resistant way. So I had to just completely surrender. So surrender, and just, I had to listen and just learn from someone who knew better, and just go with that to start with, to get used to actually not listening to the voice in my head that was saying, you've got to go faster, you've got to go harder. Because I knew that
Mm.
voice was not serving me. It just, yeah, it was actually tripping me up from any sort of progress.
Yeah. Now, at this time, did you have a coach, or were you still kind of navigating it on your own?
I was navigating it on my own, and that was part of the problem. It was part of a lot of the patterns that I had, which was, I got to cope with this by myself, and there was the I've got to be very independent about this, and I've got to do this in a really efficient way, was one of the beliefs that I held. And that was to do with money, but also to do with time, and not relying on people. So yeah, I was doing that alone, and it was also making me feel, oh, but I'm all alone with this.
Right.
And as much as I connected to a community of other people doing it, I did engage a little bit, but I'd go so far, and then I'd always pull back. So one of the biggest breakthroughs I had at that time was, well, it was because I was doing it alone, and I saw a lot of progress, a lot. I mean, it got me out of bed, basically. It got me out of the house. I was, able to function and look after myself again. But then I sort of plateaued after a while, and I just admitted that I needed some help, and I joined a group coaching set of sessions, which was, it was a kind of doable step for me, so that it wasn't like me just sitting in a sort of like a therapeutic one-on-one sort of thing. I was like going to coaching, but it was other people there, so it wasn't just all about me. And it was the hugest thing I got from that was, I realized, maybe first, second session, I don't trust anyone here. I feel really uncomfortable here. So it made me realize why I'd been holding back from asking for help and for sharing, because I just didn't trust that anyone would maybe honor what I was experiencing or understand. But I just assumed they'd hurt me in some way. They'd criticize or devalue me in some way. So yeah, it was a huge eye opening experience to do that, and it opened up then a whole new level of healing that I needed to go and get some help with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what did you do about that? Like having that huge experience and realizing that, what were steps you took then to help you overcome those old limiting beliefs and step into a level of trust?
Yeah, I think probably the first one was to admit it. Um, so I think I admitted it to the group that I was with. I was inspired by their authenticity, because as we met over the weeks, I saw how raw and open they were being, with what they were feeling, what they were thinking, what they were experiencing, and it gave me that confidence and the safe space to just say, I'm experiencing this, and I feel the same about the things that you're talking about. And I'd never ever experienced that before. And I think from that, they offered help. They offered their hand. They said, do you want to meet up outside of this? Do you want to chat? Do you want to text? And I think that started it started a virtuous circle then of just connecting a bit. And as much as I could still only go so far at that time, and then I'd pull back, I was seeing that I was doing that. And so I'd keep trying. And then when I sort of couldn't go any further, I did then say, right, I need deeper help with this. And I got a counselor, a psychotherapist for a little while, to just start to help me with that. And I'm a massive believer now in just, find the right help at the right time. And even if resources are tight, just when we're hitting those walls, we're not supposed to do this stuff alone. We are social beings. We are in connection. We are one. So sometimes we just need that helping hand. We need a safe space created for us, especially if we haven't experienced a lot of safety in our past. We're going to need to ask for help to understand what that feels like, what that looks like. And that's what that group really showed me. This is what a safe space looks like. This is what safe people who validate each other look like. And I'd never, ever experienced that before. And I was in my mid-30s at that point. So it's a long time to not have ever experienced that.
Right. And then it's funny because, well, not funny, but um it's not of a surprise that you craved and longed for this like feeling of connection, but didn't have it, because how can we possibly really ever meet that need to feel that genuine connection if there's this huge thing hovering over us that's lacking trust, not feeling safe in the connection, not trusting the people that we're trying to connect with, and then pulling back.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just
Yeah.
completely starved of that,
Uh-huh.
And
We're almost in our own way at that point, like,
oh
but
yeah,
not consciously. We're not choosing to do it, but it's this unconscious pattern that's blocking us from experiencing the very thing we crave more than anything.
absolutely. Yeah. And
Hmm.
that's where like getting that outside perspective is so helpful, because sometimes like you said, we just can't see it. It's so innate, and we're so used to feeling and seeing things, and it keeps tripping us up. We can put as much hard work as we want into these things. We can be as perfect as you want about your healing techniques, but when these beliefs are they're in the background, they're sabotaging constantly. And that for me was absolutely, it's still something I'm working on right now. It's what I believe is my really true deep core wound, is that not trusting, not feeling safe, not having that sense of connection. And the the part of myself that created the ego strategy, the protector strategy, to make up for that, is the thing that's been tripping me up all the time. That's the thing that was getting me overwhelmed when I've been trying to heal, or just in life in general. That's the thing that pushes me way beyond my boundaries when I'm in social situations. That's what turns me into a people pleaser, when I get triggered and feel like maybe someone's not understanding me, or someone's not agreeing with me in some way. And so I go back into that protector part who brings up that stress, like really overstimulates my nervous system, makes me feel not safe, and drives me to please and give and help and achieve, just so that I can turn what I'm reading from the world into hopefully approval or praise or safety. And so, yeah, getting stuck in that loop is
Yeah.
something when I got that and when I saw it for what it was, I realized it had been underlying and tripping up pretty much everything that I'd been doing up until that point, which is why I hadn't reached, the level of connection and healing in my body that I wanted at that point. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it takes people to support us because often we aren't even able to see this in ourselves. I mean, sometimes if a part's running the show so strongly, it's like we we associate as if it is who we are, that we can't even see that we're separate from it in a sense, or that it's just like this part of us, not who we are.
Exactly, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
it's there because it wants to protect us,
Hmm.
and that's another huge part of the healing journey that's pivotal. I feel is that when we're finding the self-awareness, we're seeing ourselves and our behavior for what it is, that there's no judgment with that. There's no shame about it, because those parts were developed in times of crisis and they have stayed because they believe they're saving our lives. So, wow, thank you, part. As much as you've been overwhelming me or driving me to past my boundaries or making me feel like I'm, shameful or guilty or whatever it is, you are only doing that because you don't want me to experience the kind of hurt that I used to experience. Little does it know that it's creating more hurt and creating symptoms in the body, but it has this intention of purity. It really wants me to live.
Hmm.
And understanding that was pivotal in the way that I can spend time with those parts of myself. Spending time with my feelings, spending time with the thoughts that come up from that part when it kind of comes up and takes over. I can say, right, I'll listen to you. It's fine. I'll listen. I'll give you some space, and let's work together on this, because you are a part of me. You have skills and you have great intentions and intelligence, but we might need to tweak that and redirect it, because we don't want to get our, for instance, approval and sense of worth from outside of ourselves anymore. That's maybe where we thought it came from, but actually it's not. We need to give ourselves that now. We need to fall back on what we know is true about ourselves and the world, and our true self. And then there's the part of it, which is that identity, which we get taken over by. It also wants to protect itself, so it's a protector for our inside parts, our internal world, our true self. But it also believes that it's so right and so doing such an amazing job. It doesn't want to stop doing that, because it's like, well, it's not safe to do that. I've been doing
Yeah.
this for a long time, so I can't stop doing that. So it's got protections for itself. So we get it. If we try to challenge it, it can get really angry at us and really kick back. So again, working with that, with real non-judgment and compassion, and I find working with that part to ask it permission to just consider different options, to try something else out different, has been really helpful, rather than just trying to say, come on now, it's not like this anymore, let's go a different way, because it might not be ready. It's so armored, it's so convinced that it's right, that it needs more love and care than just an intelligent argument that maybe we need to go a different route right now.
Right. Oh, that's so good. Now, in your experience, do you feel like people are going to have a better chance of working with their parts and healing through their parts and releasing the armor when they're working with somebody rather than doing it alone? Or could it be like a combination where they start working with somebody who's able to help them see their blind spots and help build their toolbox to then take out on their own?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're all individual, so we're all, and built slightly differently and have our different skills and our different histories. So I think there's always going to be self work, which is why I talk about the tool belt, because we need to take responsibility for our healing journey, and learning some techniques that feel safe and resonant with us are going to be helpful, not only for healing from the immediate things that we want relief from, but they always end up being techniques that are used then through life, through anything that's going on. Because as much as we're getting past these bigger challenges like health challenges, there's no such thing as a life where there isn't challenges. We're always going to come up against things. So we're sort of retooling ourselves, we're resourcing ourselves. So we might have got into the position of getting these illnesses because we weren't resourced to process big emotions and difficult situations and recognize what's going on in our body. So there's the part where we're learning that and practicing those by ourselves, and it's just good to feel that empowerment and to do that work on a daily basis. But for sure, there are some things that we're going to need some help with, probably. Not everyone. Some people are uniquely. I've seen people take programs like Gupta Program or DNRS or other programs like that, and they just do it by themselves. And they, couple of months in, they're like, "Wow, this is brilliant! I've never felt like this in my life. I'm feeling so much better. I'm telling everyone about it," and that's just utterly amazing that they uniquely were able to do that. They took it on, they got the right mindset and they take it positively, and it really works for them. And then others, they take it on and they go down completely, they fall apart, or they go down the victim, it kind of triggers a victim part of them, or the achiever mindset, like I talked about in that blog, and go a bit over perfectionist, and it kind of overwhelms them. So it's uniquely just checking in with the self and just saying, how am I reacting? What do I need in this moment? And just finding the right people at the right time. And it could be that you need help at some points and then you're right for a little bit, and then help at other points. And it could be that you just need to be supported right the way through. Depends on, what wounds are you carrying, and what are you needing? I think that's one of the main things of healing, is just understanding what we need, asking ourselves that question. Even like, how often do people do that? What do I need right now? That's such a pivotal thing we can do for ourselves.
Right. A lot of times what I see and experience, and I know I know this was my story for a really long time until it wasn't, but it was asking everybody else what I need.
Yeah.
We do that a lot. We outsource our power, and we learned it. We learned it by it started, maybe we were going to like Western medicine doctors, and then we started going to functional doctors, and then we started going to nutritionists, and then we started going to this person. And then we finally understand that there's this mind-body connection, but then we still continue to outsource our power. Is in a similar way that how we've already talked about, you kind of approached the healing from like still that perfectionist mindset, those old, so we can then take that that disempowering mindset and carry that into this practice as well. Like asking everybody else, well, what if I do it this way? Well, what if I can't do this? Well, what if I want to do that? Like, what about this? Well, what do I need to do? Well, what's my next step? And we forget that we can actually just sit with ourselves and ask ourselves.
Absolutely. And again, that's something that I've seen quite commonly with people going into a program or starting some sort of coaching or therapy, or learning some techniques, is just asking, like, and looking for that validation, or looking for permission to do things. I've had it quite a lot with people that come to me and say, well, I've learned this and I know what I'm supposed to be doing over here. I've got the list of things, and I here's my routine for the morning. And then they say, so how shall I do it then? What do you think? And it's always, it's a completely impossible question. I don't know what you need. I don't know how much is too much or too little for you. I don't know what resonates with you. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about, that person has not yet recognized and taken back their power, that at some point, whenever that was, has either been taken from them, or they've got used to giving up over and over and giving that away to others. And I know I did that. I know I lived like that for most of my life, just completely disempowered and looking for someone else, because there was such a huge part of me looking for validation, looking for approval. Um, yeah, I looked for that in the healing journey too. And I found it incredibly difficult when I went down this road, the mind body and all the different techniques that I learned. When I would mention them to friends or family, like first I would just like wax lyrical. I'd be so evangelical about it, and be like, "What, you've got the same sort of symptoms. You've got the same sort of thing. Why wouldn't you do this with me?" And could never understand at that time like why people reacted badly to that, or like sort of backed off like really slowly, like you're trying to like leave the room. But I mean, what I didn't realize was that I was disempowering them by, judging what's going on with them and then saying, but you should do this. And I think that's what so much of that's such a core part of disempowerment, is that many of us have experienced being told what to do or not to do, that we never took up the power to make our own choice, to like the things that we like, to stop for a moment and listen to ourselves and where our intuition might be speaking on something or where our body might be speaking on it, because we're so used to being swept up or crushed by somebody else's opinions or bullying or abuse or whatever is going on in a stressful situation. So taking back our power to listen to what resonates right for us. And that's, there are so many healing techniques out in the world. And that's utterly brilliant because we're so unique. There is no such thing as one thing that's going to fit every single person. That's why I love the whole tool belt thing, is that take little bits from little bits all over the place and build what works for you. For some people, that's one program. And for some people, that's a program with a bunch of other stuff added on, to the side. And for some people, it's different on different days. But it can be overwhelming in a world where now we have so much access to all of those. There is just so much information out there about them. And it can feel disempowering trying to figure that out and trying to like say, well, which is the one that's right for me? I've got to figure it out in my head, what's perfect, what will fit, what will get me there the quickest. But again, we're disempowering ourselves because we're not stopping and saying, but which resonates? Like, which one does my body vibrate with when I go near it, when I think about it, when I try that out? So in more and more, we need to be reminded to come back and stop analyzing and stop trying to be that perfectionist around these things, or to be told by someone, this is the one, this is the thing, it worked for me, it's going to work for you. And stop, we can listen with interest to those things, but we have to stop, pause in ourselves and say, yeah, but where does that fit for me? How do I feel about that?
Yes, absolutely. You said that really, really well because, yeah, I mean, so many people like yourself, right? When you first got really excited and wanted to share it with your family, it comes from a good place. We have good intentions. Our heart is in the right place doing it, but because when we find out what worked for us, we get so excited. We want to tell the world and we want to tell everybody they need to do it too because it worked for us. But like you said, we are so unique, and so while it comes from a good place, it's not always truth. It doesn't mean because it worked for me, it's going to work for you in the exact same way. And I love how you said that we need to really go back to checking in within and feeling with what resonates with us. That's so huge.
Yeah, that's all we can ever do, is
Right.
that's how the only way we're ever going to find out what works for us, because otherwise we're doing exactly what you said, disempowering ourselves by just waiting for the answer to come, from that practitioner or that advert or that celebrity. And that's, that might have worked for them, that's brilliant, but you got to wait and see, does that fit for me?
Right. How could you speak on just your thoughts on how to create a balance between taking your power back and also asking for help, because in my experience, I know that was a struggle at first for me. It was this like teetering, like, okay, I want to be empowered. I want to take my power back. I want to trust myself. But, or, and also, I knew that I needed to stop trying to do it all on my own, because it's almost like I noticed I went from one extreme to the other and maybe had to find my way back to that middle ground where it was like, no, I'm going to take my power back. I don't need any help. I can do this all on my own. But then you kind of go to that other side and realize, like, how do I find that balance of standing in my power, and allowing help to come my way.
And what a balance that is. It's I'm really glad you brought that up, because it is, I think my journey with that really sounds similar, resonates with what you just said exactly. I think it's trial and error. There is no there's no like formula that we're going to be able to say this is the way to do it. But and I think we need to go through that, maybe, going too far one way and then pulling it back too far the other way, and then sort of like swinging a little bit back and forth, oscillating until we find that balance. Because it's like, there's a lot of things in life like that, like I made the assumption that creativity, because creativity is at my, like, writing is at my core, like creating worlds, storytelling, and I had to reconnect with that to really find deeper healing. And I have been so shut off from that because of perfectionism, because of fear of criticism, and I made, had these kind of cultural assumption as well. It has to be done quite efficiently. It has to be done perfectly, and you're not really allowed the time to be in the process of that. You just got to like produce something that's good to be worthy, and that mindset, like, it really broke me, and it meant that I didn't really produce anything. So I didn't, have a healing practice. I didn't have a creativity practice, because it was either perfect or nothing. But the writing process is all about being in the process. It's about messing around and playing and drafting something, and then drafting it again and drafting it again, and taking it one way and then taking it another. And famous authors will tell you, they wrote 50 different versions of that book with 50 different characters and different endings. And it's about allowing oneself to be in the process, and forgiving oneself and celebrating oneself, and having the courage to just be in it. And I think that's like this balance that you're talking about. It's about allowing ourselves the space to practice and play and draft and edit and take things back and apologize and ask for celebration. And when it's right, when that balance starts to form, your body knows, and your nervous system knows, and you're going to feel that. You're going to feel a flow and a grounding and more peace and more strength, and those signals will come to you that you're kind of getting there. And so then you can find that routine, or that the balance of connection that we're talking about, going outside of ourselves and asking for help, and sometimes just really standing in our power. And standing in our power doesn't mean aloneness. It doesn't mean
Right.
I'm just this statue on the top of the hill, look at me with my amazing stance. It's a different thing to different people. But power is vulnerability. Power is saying I need help. Power is having weakness and being okay with it. And it's resilience. That's what power is. So we'll need different things at different times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And it's like, also, when we do ask for help, that doesn't mean we have to go ask for help and then be at their mercy. Like, I'll do anything you tell me to. It's more like, hey, guide me, help me,
Yeah.
coach me, and I can still decide what does or doesn't feel right for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you can find the most resonant practices or people, mentors, practitioners, whatever. And there's still things that they say or do that you might want to leave, that they might not quite fit in with the unique you. And that's, like I said before, it's about that empowerment to choose what's okay for me, what do I want to let in, and actually what can I leave, what really doesn't, I don't need that right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. And I loved your analogy because it's so true. It is just about the process. I don't know if anyone listening or yourself, it's just, I've noticed that for so many things in this healing journey, for me, I almost have to oscillate from the extremes. Like maybe I'm on one end and I almost see myself always kind of teetering to the far other as if it's black and white, and then finding my way back to the middle. Like boundaries. When I first learned that I didn't really set boundaries, I went like hardcore, like I'm going to really be firm in setting boundaries. And then I had to
Yeah.
realize, well, there's like a really healthy way to set boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. So what, boundaries is the one that will bring that right out, that balance. And I say to people, you know what? You're going to get it wrong. Don't worry. We all do, and we all have, and we probably still are in some ways. But like
Absolutely.
you said, sometimes you've got to go to the extreme, because if you haven't had something, especially something as amazingly pivotal as a boundary in whatever part of you needs that, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, um, you're going to need to feel what it's like to really, really have one, to then
Mm-hmm.
understand where your balance for that is going to come.
Right.
Because I did the same, and I for some of my boundaries I went way, way, way beyond, and it was so severe. It was just ridiculous. But for others, I only went a little way. But because I didn't understand boundaries that much, because I just didn't, it's like learning a new language, isn't it? Like sometimes you learn a few words and you think you're getting a handle on something, but you don't know the whole complexity and hugeness of that thing. And I had no idea really about boundaries. I set these ones I thought were great and big, but actually, because I didn't know what they weren't very much at all. And so I had to go to the extreme to understand what it really, really was to have a boundary, and then take my time to figure out, right, okay, yeah, that was way too far. And this one, yeah, okay, you know what? I think I can pull that back, because that was much more about a safety part of me being triggered than it was a genuine need to have, a boundary there. And I'm a highly
Yeah.
sensitive person, so I really need boundaries. And because I had zero, I just didn't even know that you could.
Right.
I thought that not only would I be in danger, but I thought every part of humanity was in danger if I had boundaries, because it had to save people, didn't I? I had to feel their feelings and take on their stuff, and I had to fix them. So yeah, it's kind of unbelievable, the extremes that sometimes happens with this, but it is part of the process, and it's okay. It's okay, and it's safe, and there's nothing you can't ask for forgiveness for if you don't get it right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to point out. Because again, we're not trying to do it perfect.
No, there's no such thing,
It's okay if it's messy.
Yeah. And it's one of the most mature things that you can ever do is say, you know what, I tried that out and I didn't really get that right. Like, can we talk about it? You'll get much more from that than you would trying to figure out the perfect version and then trying to put it in place,
Yeah.
and trying to control it, because it doesn't work, does it? We cannot control anything really, but like especially things like boundaries and relationships and that sort of thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about something else that we've kind of just briefly mentioned so far, the concept of joy, and particularly purpose and passion. This is another blog you wrote that was really fantastic, and I'll make sure I link in the show notes to your blog for people to check out the full experience of it. But you had a whole blog on purpose and passion, and you were writing about how you had this, how did you say it? You said you had this point where you realized that there was like you were living a purposeless life,
Mm.
and that you were getting all the messages from your body, heart, and soul, right? And like that, guiding you, saying, hey, you're not on the right path, you're not in your joy, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
And so purpose and passions tie into joy, right? Like we are obviously going to feel in joy when we are passionate about things and when we're living on purpose. But sometimes when somebody's sick or they're in pain or they're already at this place where their world has gotten really small, it's almost as if we can even be further away from our purpose or
Mm.
our passion. It's almost even harder to pursue the passion or create the joy, right? Because maybe we're so sick that, or so tired, or in so much pain that we feel like one of two things. One, we just don't have the energy or stamina or physical capacity to go out and seek this joy or create this joy or experience our passions or create a purpose. And often as well, sometimes we are so disconnected from what that even is any longer.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could speak on that and what advice or suggestions you would have for somebody who is at a place where their life is feeling small and they are disconnected and they don't even know. They're like, I don't know what brings me joy, or
Mm.
I know what brings me joy, but I physically am so unwell that I can't do it. Like, what are steps we can take to recreate this in our life? Because for anyone who's familiar with the Gupta program, and as you said, it's one of the 3 R's. It's
Yeah.
part of healing. That joy, that purpose, that passion, that alignment is part of what helps us heal. So when we're so sick, how do we get back there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really really good topic. So I was one of these people that was just out of it, just like in bed, housebound, bedbound. And so I just want to say straight up, if anyone's listening and you're either in that position or close to that position, just being in that position, that it must be possible to make these connections and to, move beyond it. If others have done it, I've done it. And at first, I felt similarly to some of those things you just said. Like, how on earth? Like, what even is this thing? This joy? This purpose stuff? And it made me really angry to start with. Actually, if it was mentioned, um, because of exactly what you were saying. Like, I'm so sick here. I am so incapable. I have been removed from the world that I used to know, and I cannot partake in it anymore. I cannot, I can't function. And so if I'm basically just trying to, breathe and eat and get to the bathroom, what on earth am I going to be able to do to feel any joy and purpose or anything like that? So I do get it. I truly, truly empathize. And I think, number one, I had to recognize that frustration, that anger, because it's okay. It is it is absolutely valid that we feel those kind of things, or maybe we feel defeated and sort of listless around it. It's okay to be with those feelings, honor them, because they're telling us something. They're telling us, I want this, but I don't know how to get it, or I don't know what it is. And that's the first part of letting that flow, letting it come through. And then the next part, I think, is all about just the smallest of things that we can listen into from inside of ourselves, whether that's, if we have a connection, are able to listen to, parts of ourselves speaking, or an inner child, or anything that's going on inside around what interests me, what sparks me, what brings me any sort of, what draws my attention in the world. What kind of thing did I used to get lost in? What kind of things, can I imagine getting lost in? Those are the kind of things that must be resonating with us and speaking to us. There's something, going on inside there. And I think and even if we're completely divorced from that, it's maybe thinking about gratitude, like a gratitude practice. And this is one of the very first things that I did when I was in bed, like completely in bed for months and months, was that And again, I resisted this to start with, and I hated doing it because I didn't genuinely feel gratitude. So I thought it wasn't working, but it did end up working in the end. So I really encourage people to do this one, because I know, gratitude practices are like quite a well-known thing to do. But I would just lie there and I would just search my mind for anything that I could feel grateful for. And sometimes I would just open my eyes and look around and just think, what have I done today? Or what could I be grateful for today? And I would just be grateful for the duvet that was on top of me. And I would be grateful for the fact that the room I was in was dry. And I'd be grateful for flushing toilets. Just like genuine, the things that are right there in front of me that do actually make life so luxurious and so, okay for us, especially when we're in such a vulnerable position as illness. And it was the practice of that allowed me to start seeing other things I could be grateful for or happy about in some way. And and started noticing things, sounds. I started noticing colors. I started noticing textures. And then, oh, I can see out the window. Oh, I'm grateful, to see that bird or that piece of sky. And it just that practice took me outside of myself to reconnect with the world and with what goodness was surrounding me. But I was so unable to see it because I was so focused on pain and fatigue. So that's one of the first things that might be possible for somebody who is, in a difficult, challenging position. And it's building on that then, just really small practices that we can do to spark what might resonate with us. Because what our body, that purpose, that passion that's inside of us, we don't have to know, I think a lot of people get really obsessed. Like, I have to know what my purpose is in life to heal. I get a lot of that, people talking to me about it. Like, if I don't know, what do I know what I'm supposed to be heading towards, Or like, what's my goal to heal if I don't know what my purpose is in life? Well, maybe we don't need to know the exactness of that. Maybe the main thing that we need to be aligning with is what takes my interest, what makes me smile, what brings me calmness. And it might be that you can feel that happiness, feel that joy, feel excitement about things. And so it's just noticing what those might be and trying to bring them into life in the smallest ways, most possible ways to start with. And I think that building that relationship to ourselves and that passion inside is, again, it's a virtuous sort of practice that builds and builds and builds, sometimes without us even knowing. And suddenly you turn around one day and you're like, oh, I realized that I'm really interested in that thing. All right, I can go and do a bit more of that. And that might lead us down then that track of finding that purpose and that passion. But it's okay to be, like, again, we were saying earlier, it's okay to be in the process of it, to not know exactly where that endpoint is, but just to be trying to enjoy things right now as they are.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think that's such a great reminder that we don't need to always be so certain of our purpose, because you're right. I'm guilty also of becoming like obsessed with, in my past, of like feeling like I needed to know it but I find that that's really comes down to just another way that my need to control is
Yeah.
showing up,
Yeah.
and which is not trusting in the universe, right?
Yeah.
Because I need to know this so that I can control the steps I take to work towards this, and I know the end goal, rather than, like you said, like, well, could I just notice what makes me smile, what makes me feel peace, where is my interest leading, and trusting that that will guide me in the right path.
Absolutely. And I feel really resonant with that. Absolutely. That I'd done the same thing. I'm still, capable of going down that road pretty often. Noticed it recently for myself, like just trying to work it out, trying to know what that endpoint has to be, to know that all the effort I'm putting in is the right effort. It's all efficient. It's all going in the right direction. And it's about that control for sure. Like I want to know that that's worth it and that's where I'm going. and there's a safety element there, and there's a feeling like, yeah, I want to control it, actually. I want to feel that power. It's quite addictive, to feel like that. And it's okay. So it's recognizing that and then saying, okay, can I breathe that out? Yeah. Can I find a trust? Can I flow with this? Because in the end, it doesn't even, I come to the point when I'm on, in one of my better days where I realize some of those like bigger things that I started to dare to dream about, it might not really matter if I don't get those outcomes. But if I'm on the road to it and enjoying the process in the meantime, then that's where my life is being lived. It's in those moments. So there'd be nothing to regret there. And at least I'm being true to myself, and I'm being joyful and passionate. And actually, maybe that's what it's all about. I think then accidentally things start to happen, like those goals start to sort of just appear, and the universe kind of conspires to make sure that those things happen for you.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. When you're honoring that truth and staying aligned to the joy and creating that joy and all that, then you have to trust that the other things align.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just obsessed with the outcome and just so tunnel vision focused on that you're not noticing anything else in between, which just I think keeps us in a stress state. So yeah, it's only going to be counterproductive.
Right. Do you think there's ever a time, though, that we have to do the things that we don't enjoy because we are working towards something that we really, really, really want?
Yes, I think so. And that's like, it's not all roses, is it? It's just, I mean, the healing journey is just, it's 1 minute it's pure joy, and the next minute is challenge, and the next minute I'm throwing something out of a window, and the next minute I'm just loving everybody. It's not linear, and we're going through all these layers of ourselves, layers of other people, layers of the world, all these different energies. Some of them are ours, some of them are others, some of them are our ancestors. Like, there's just so much going on. But I think keeping that, just the calm center, the resilience amongst it all, is where we can keep our health. And yeah, sometimes if we know that thing is in service of our higher good, then sometimes we're going to have to knuckle down, and we're going to have to commit to something. And I admit freely, I have absolutely not wanted to do loads of my healing practices or sessions or conversations or whatever it is that I've done over time. But it's my commitment to sit even through that discomfort, through that resistance, that helps me progress,
Right.
and keeps building on itself. Everything is about building on the tiny, tiny steps, every single step that we take. Otherwise, we're looking for that kind of perfect or like silver bullet for this thing, and we're trying to jump from where we are into this envisioned perfect other like state of being. But some of those steps are going to be really hard. They're going to be grueling. They're going to be uphill, and that's okay, because it is part of the journey.
Yeah, so true. Okay, when you have somebody come to you that's pursuing coaching from you, how do you help to discern what is a good starting point or path for them, or help them discern what they need, especially if they're coming to you and you do notice that they have not really stepped into their own personal power, or are still really like seeking guidance outward? Like, how do you help provide that guidance in a way that still supports them stepping into their empowerment?
Yeah. I think what I'm looking to start with is, where are they in their evolution? So, are they taking responsibility for this journey? Have they committed to the knowledge that it might be more than just that food that they were eating, or that person that hurt them? Are they really locked on to like blaming something else or someone else? And are they, do they have any sort of connection to their inner self, their inner world? Can they feel safe? So I'm looking, what stage of their evolution are they? And then it's discerning, okay, so this person might need some really, really foundational work here. around going into their body. Maybe they might not have any connection to their body yet, and what's going on inside of it. So very gentle, slower techniques. And then some people, they're willing to be challenged, and even if they know, I'm still really attached to this belief or really attached to this behavior, but I'm willing to take responsibility and start to really challenge that. I just need you to hold the space for me, or I need you to guide me a bit. Then we can go into some more of those deeper techniques that it's safer then to hold the space for someone for that. And that's the work that I love to do. I love it when someone's ready for that challenge point. I mean, we're all different. We're all at different points of where we are, but I think that's such an exciting point to be at. When we're ready to do that uncomfortable work that we just spoke about.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's probably really gratifying when you see people have breakthroughs, and even though they're the ones who are doing the work, you're there to facilitate and guide. So
yeah, it's an honor. It's you are invited into the inner sanctum of something to be witness to somebody. It's literally almost like a sunbeam hits somebody at that point of insight or inspiration sometimes when you're working with someone, and it's just such an honor to witness that. Yeah,
absolutely. What are your current offerings, and what is your ideal client right now?
Yeah, well, ideal, because like what I just said, someone who's just willing to be challenged and who likes to be on that journey with somebody. I'm an EFT practitioner and a coach for the Gupta Program, and I mostly at the moment work with group coaching, very small groups, sort of no more than 8 or 10 people, sometimes smaller, because I'm really passionate about creating those safe spaces, and I think because of my own experience about lack of trust and feeling that need for validation and connection, I think holding a group really speaks to my healing with that, and wanting to hold that space for others that have experienced that. So that's probably someone that's more my ideal kind of person as well, that you might have experienced that kind of dislocation from yourself and others, and you're looking to heal that side of yourself and bring yourself really authentically to that space. So holding group coaching, a few one-to-ones, and I do workshops as well, just to share this kind of thing, that like what you do, what we're speaking about here is just to give a bit of information, but to inspire people. That's the main thing, is inspire that other people have been on this journey, they are on this journey, they're still doing the work, and they are willing to walk along beside you, and witness you and hold you, and celebrate that you're taking this power back for yourself.
That's awesome. And where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's balanceandflow.org. And on there some blogs and other things. And that I've got quite a few things to put on there. So there'll be some new blogs and videos going up soon. But anything I do is listed on there. And I also have a workbook with the Women's Wellness Circle that I co-authored with my ex-business partner, Frances Goodall, who I think was also on your podcast sometime in the past. We worked together quite closely for a few years, and we wrote a workbook together just to introduce the kind of mind-body work, the kind of foundational things that you might want to look into to build that tool belt for yourself, to find a safe space within yourself, and how to build that safe space in your daily routine to look inward and to feel your feelings and to start to rewire some of these things that might be tripping up your health and happiness.
Awesome. Do you have any social media?
I do, but if anyone goes to it, I got an Instagram and a Facebook, but if you go to it, you'll see that it hasn't been updated for quite some time. And that's because I've taken a bit of a break from it because of my high sensitivity. Because it's one of those things that I really like to remind people of, is that there's different phases that we are in life, and when there's a lot going on. So, for instance, recently I've sold my house and I'm living in a rented place and I'm trying to buy a place. And lots of projects that I've been doing have kind of like been stalled because of COVID. And, you know, there's a lot of like change and like rugs being pulled out from underneath me. So I need to honor that, like, there's a lot of change and things to hold in my system. So to do that, I then maybe, you know, shut down a bit on social media or emailing or going out socially as much, because, you know, there's a balance that I need to hold all of those things. And it's really good to remind ourselves that, you know, we might be those kind of people. We might need to remind ourselves we can't hold everything all at once, and that's okay. So please do join me on social media. But yeah, you will see a post when I'm feeling more expansive. hmm. Only one. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, it'll be different on different days, but the main thing, yeah, the main thing is you are essential. I truly believe that every being is essential, is part of the overall workings of the universe, you know, the natural rhythms of things. And if you're experiencing challenge, difficulty, physical issues, mental issues, spiritual issues that are holding you back from feeling fulfilled and passionate and purposeful and just grounded, then it's completely possible to reconnect with the power to come back to that self, um, and just keep looking for the inspiration to find your own unique path back to that, because we need you. You are totally essential, and we're waiting for you.
Mm, I love that so much. Thank you. Oh, that's beautiful. Jen, thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for being willing to be vulnerable and share your experience. And thank you for continuing to do the work to improve yourself on your healing journey. And then in doing so, being able to give back to the community and help others on their journey as well. I appreciate you.
Me too, for you and for everyone out there. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, that is it for today's episode. Please do not forget to check out the links in the show notes to connect with Jen, or even to sign up for the free trial of the Gupta Program if this is something that is resonating for you and you are feeling called to explore it as a possible next step in your journey. Enjoy your continued moments of self-reflection and connection with yourself, and as always, make this week great.